This is a training video on how to use VLOOKUP, a function in Excel, and how it can help make life a little easier when you're comparing large amounts of information. One of the frustrating things about Schoolmint is that it uses a 4-digit school ID number that does not correspond with the TEA school number that we're used to. It also doesn't really show us the school name. And so the long way to do that is to do kind of a find and replace, or maybe just a batch changes in Excel. But the quick way to do that is going to be using a function called VLOOKUP. And I've got a few things here on the screen. I have a dummy roster that I sort of built to mimic what Schoolmint's going to give you. And then I have a reference tab at the bottom of the screen here. And I want to show a few things on setup. First of all, you'll notice that this has the drop downs on it. And that's because this is a table, and it's being very specific here, calling it a table within Excel. A table is a range of cells that are kind of connected together in almost a very rudimentary database sort of way, letting you sort, letting you filter. The way you create a table is you're going to select some data that you have, and this is already a table, so I can't make a new one, but let's say it's just a bunch of cells. I can select all of that, and then I can hit Insert Table. Obviously, it's already a table, so it's grayed out, but that's going to give these cells a relationship to each other, and that's how you're going to be better at sorting and all of that. If you're using Google Sheets, it doesn't do that because it's frankly a terrible spreadsheet, so stick with Excel on that. So really quickly, looking at this roster, you can see I've got some holes in it. And that's because I want to show you how this works. And then I've got a training tab at the bottom that we're going to use to really start from scratch and see if we can make this happen. So I've got my roster. I've made it a table using that insert table, selected all, insert table function. And I've got over here this Schoolmint school ID. Now, like I said, this doesn't correspond to anything that we already know. It's just a random number assigned by Schoolmint to our schools, and so it doesn't really help us much. We want to convert that into something that does help us, and that could be the school name, it could be the school number, however you want to think. So I've got some examples in here. Right here, 5965, AM Pate, ES, 153, etc., etc. Down here I've left some blank ones. And you'll notice it says NA, and that's because something's wrong here. I've got some data missing, and that data is right here. So let's say we've got Abraham Lincoln, and he goes to the school that Schoolmint has called 5974. You see immediately when I type that in, it converts the school name and the school number into Bonnie Bray and 225. That's pretty awesome. Let's show another example. Rosa Parks, let's say she went to 5975. Boom, switches to Boulevard Heights and 104. Well, that's nice and easy. And if you've got a list of 400 students, or 100 students, you can see how that might be much faster than going through and typing all of those and find and replace, right? Because it's instantaneous. Now, if your mind is wandering a little bit and you think, how else could I use this? I use this, for example, when I build testing room rosters, that instead of having on Excel each room with students, I just type in an ID number and it populates the student information right next to the ID number based on a reference roster. So there's a lot of ways. I use this constantly in order to make my life much easier. Hopefully you can too after this training. So where is it getting this information? Just out of thin air? No, it's not. It's using this VLOOKUP function, and I'll click on this and show you what that VLOOKUP function looks like in practice. VLOOKUP, the V is for vertical. There is an HLOOKUP. We're not going to get to that. It's not used as much. But that V in the VLOOKUP is going to say, okay, you're going to look for things in columns. How are you going to look for it? Well, let's start by saying there's a reason I put this in a table first. This table, because it is a table and not just a bunch of cells, it has now named these columns for me, and that's going to make my life so much easier going forward. And so what we can look at in here is, well, what do we really want it to do? We want it to look at this number, translate this number into something that makes sense to me, and show me that translation. That's all I really want out of this function. So to do that, I have to have a sort of Rosetta Stone. I'm going to call it my reference tab, and I've got it right here. My reference tab is going to show me what I want to translate: my Schoolmint ID, my school name, and my school number. And I filtered out everything that doesn't have a school number. I wasn't going to type all 100 and whatever of them. But these are, right here, schoolman ID, school name, and school number. This is my translation, right? This is my reference page. But there's a lot of these, and I don't need all of them. I just need the one I need at that time for that student. So what this is saying is, okay, start here. Go to, and it's already highlighting it for me, go to this cell. Look at this number. Then go to table 1, and my reference table is also a table. I did that thing where I selected all, insert table. Look at this table, right? Okay, so let's look at that table. Then, don't know why that happened. Look at column number 2 of that table. Okay, look at column number 2. That's where all the school names are. And then return the exact value that you find in school name in column number 2. That's what that false means. Look for the exact value. If you put true, it's going to get an approximation, which is useful at certain times, but not for most of what we do. Look for the exact result and give it to me here. Okay, done. It did that. So what about that school number one? How am I getting that? Well, it's the same process. Look here, and then look back at table 1. But instead of looking at column 2, we're going to look at column 3. And you can see right here, I changed it to column 3. And then it's got to be the exact one. Now, some limitations here. VLOOKUP only goes left to right. There is a function called XLOOKUP. We don't have it in our version yet. Mac users, you might have it already. But VLOOKUP looks from left to right. And so in your reference table, understand that the column that is your reference, and here it's my schoolman ID, has to be the leftmost column. If it's not the leftmost column, then it doesn't know how to look for it. There are ways to do that with things that aren't the leftmost column. You can use index match, you can use XLOOKUP, but we're not going to get into that. That's a lot of work. So when you're building your reference table, just make sure that that primary key, we call it in databasing, that unique value is going to be the left-hand side. The one that you're looking up has to be the left-hand side, okay? So let's do this in practice. Let's create this. Go to my training side. Okay, we've got a totally empty one here. Let's talk about how to do this VLOOKUP now. We're going to start with an equal sign. We're going to type VLOOKUP. We're going to open parenthesis. Lookup value is underlined. You can click that and get information about it. It's saying, okay, it's helping you out. Which one do you want to look up? Well, I want to look up this one, of course. Table array. Not as helpful, but where do you want to look it up? What's the table? The whole table, not just the column. Well, I'm going to go to my reference, and I'm going to do this. Where you see the diagonal? Oh, wait a second. Diagonal cursor there right at the top left of the table. That's going to make life a lot easier for me. I'm just going to click that. And you'll notice it says, oh, a table 1, and it's selected the entire table. That's what we want. We don't need the headers. We just need the table. Comma. Which column? I want school name, so 1, 2. Make sure you don't have any hidden columns, by the way. Those do count, even though they're hidden. We don't, obviously, here. 2. And then range lookup options. You notice it's helping you approximate match or exact match. You want the exact match. And then make sure you close. And we're done. Notice, because this is a table, it automatically sent that formula all the way down, the entire thing. So I don't have to click and drag, it just does it automatically here. Now let's do this over here on school number. Equals VLOOKUP. Open parenthesis. Lookup value, I'm looking up that one. Table array, you can type it. If you know it's table 1, you can type it, but I always go back and click. Boop, right there. Column index, 1, 2, 3. And then I want an exact match. False, close parenthesis, right there. It's automatically pulling things in. Okay, that's all well and good, but all of a sudden we added a kid. Okay, let's add a kid. Let's do Coolidge Calvin. And let's say he went to, let's just steal 5965. Notice it automatically propagated. It added a column or added a row. See this thing move down, it added a row. It automatically moved that function down for me. It automatically moved that function down for me. I can add as many as I want. and it's going to keep going. It's very helpful. Smith, Steve, 5975, automatically going to add those people for me, or those formulae for me in those cells. Makes my life a whole lot easier. So hopefully this has helped you. Go ahead and play around with VLOOKUP. Make sure you save as a sandbox or a test file, but go ahead and play and see what you can do. The other thing about VLOOKUP is because this is such a hugely used thing, a very commonly used thing within the Excel community, there's tons and tons and tons of online reference for you. And honestly, the best one I've seen is just straight out of Microsoft. Microsoft provides some great materials. They show the exact syntax and all the things that you can do with this. And once you master VLOOKUP, then all of a sudden you can start creating these compound functions and formulae that really can automate much of your life and make things a whole lot easier.